Hello. Today we are moving past I'm happy and I am sad. We want to help you sound more like a native speaker.
Right, because you might have this really intense emotion, you know, but when you try to describe it, it just comes out as, well, basic.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like trying to paint a massive masterpiece, but you only have two colors to use.
It really does. And the English language actually offers so much more than just those binary labels. But, I mean, to use that higher tier of language, you have to understand how the words physically work.
Which is exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We are upgrading your emotional vocabulary, giving you the linguistic tools to express exactly how you feel.
And we have a great stack of resources today to help us do that.
We really do. We're pulling from advanced vocabulary guides, historical idiom lists, some YouTube transcripts on diplomacy and anger, and this really fascinating academic paper on translating emotions across cultures.
Yeah, it's not just a list of synonyms. We are looking under the hood to see why these words carry so much weight.
Right. So let's start on the bright side with the positive spectrum. Like, if happy is just a gentle breeze, what does a hurricane of joy sound like?
Well, happy is just the baseline, right? It tells people the category of your emotion, but it gives zero data on the actual intensity.
Exactly. I was thinking about this. Like, imagine you get a major promotion at work, you've been grinding for 5 years, or someone gives you this incredible, irreplaceable gift.
Oh, yeah.
If you just look at them and say, I am happy, it completely undersells the moment.
It really does. To convey that higher frequency, you need words that imply action, like thrilled or ecstatic or enraptured.
Thrilled is a great one.
Yeah, and historically, the root of thrilled comes from an Old English word meaning to pierce. So you're subconsciously saying the joy was so sharp it physically pierced you.
Oh, wow. I never knew that. It feels very sharp and sudden. But then contrast that with euphoric.
Right, euphoria is totally different.
Yeah, it's not sharp. It feels like this massive wave of well-being that just, washes over you.
Exactly. Or if the feeling is less energetic and more about deep contentment, you might say you are blissed out or zen.
Blissed out. That's a really common phrase now.
It is. Adding out implies you've reached your absolute limits. You are maxed out on contentment. We also use phrases like blissfully happy or describe things as a roller coaster of emotions.
A roller coaster, right, because it mixes joy with, like, anxiety and relief.
Exactly. We borrow the mechanics of a theme park ride.
Where English really gets interesting is with its idioms for joy. Looking at our sources, there's a huge pattern. Native speakers almost always use height to describe maximum joy.
Yes, the spatial metaphors.
Like people say they're walking on air or over the moon on top of the world on cloud nine or in seventh heaven. Why is it always about going up?
Well, across many cultures, the concept of up is subconsciously mapped to positive states. You wake up, things are looking up,
Right.
and conversely, down is mapped to negative states. You fall asleep, you feel down. So when we feel extreme joy, our language reaches for upward mobility.
Which explains cloud nine. Our sources actually link that to a mid-20th century meteorological system. Cumulonimbus clouds, the really massive thunderstorm ones, were designated as Category 9.
So saying you're on cloud nine literally means you are at the highest possible atmospheric point.
Exactly. But English doesn't just use altitude, we also use animals, some of which are, frankly, a bit weird.
Oh, the animal idioms, like happy as a pig in mud.
Right, which makes biological sense. The mud cools the pig down. Or like a dog with two tails, because we know dogs wag their tails when they're happy.
Right, it amplifies a known biological indicator.
But I have to ask about happy as a clam. I mean, I've never looked at a clam and thought, wow, what a joyous creature.
It sounds totally irrational until you know the rest of the phrase. From the 1800s, it was originally happy as a clam at high water.
High water. Because at high tide, the clam is submerged.
Exactly. When the tide goes out, clams are exposed and vulnerable to predators. But at high tide, they are protected under the water.
Oh, so it's not about jumping up and down. It's about feeling completely secure.
Yes, impenetrable security. We just dropped the second half of the phrase over the centuries, which leaves us with a very confusing mollusk.
That makes so much sense. So if happiness relies on altitude and security, sadness operates on depths and vulnerability.
Right. We move from the peaks of joy down into the valleys.
And just like happy failed to capture the promotion, sad completely fails to capture real loss, like losing a vintage watch from your grandfather.
Or when your favorite sports team loses the championship game in the final 3 seconds.
Oh, yeah. If you turn to your friend and say, I'm sad, It feels like looking at a broken leg and calling it a paper cut.
That's a perfect analogy. The scale is completely misaligned.
So what words should we use instead?
Well, when emotional pain crosses a certain threshold, English borrows the vocabulary of physical trauma. We say miserable, heartbroken, distressed, or really strong words like devastated and gutted.
Gutted is ubiquitous in UK English, right?
Very common. And think about the mechanics of it. To gut something is to slice it open and remove its insides.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So saying I was gutted forces the listener to visualize that physical hollowness. The news literally removed your capacity to function.
That is so vivid. And devastated works similarly, but for a landscape.
Exactly. It comes from Latin meaning to lay waste or completely destroy an area. You were saying your emotional state is a disaster zone.
We also use words about physical posture like dejected or downcast.
Yes, downcast literally describes casting your eyes down toward the floor. We also say worried sick, linking emotional anxiety to biological nausea. Or you talk about bottling up emotions.
Like a glass bottle under immense pressure.
Right, or being an emotional wreck. Or when a situation starts to get someone down.
But sadness is fundamentally passive, right? It sinks down. So what happens when that negative energy sours and explodes outward?
That is when we cross into frustration and anger, which requires a totally different architectural framework. It's active and kinetic.
Let's start with daily frustrations. Sitting in horrible traffic or, dealing with really slow internet.
Or loud neighbors early in the morning.
Yes. We use phrases like, it drives me crazy, I'm annoyed, cranky, or grumpy.
And there's a specific distinction there. Annoyed is a reaction to an external thing. But cranky and grumpy are physiological states.
Right. You're cranky because you missed lunch, not because of the traffic itself.
Exactly. And if your baseline is ruined from the moment you wake up, we say you got up on the wrong side of the bed.
I love how drives me crazy implies a vehicle taking you away from your sanity. But when we move to extreme anger, the vocabulary shifts entirely.
It really does. We use words like livid, furious, incensed, and outraged.
And there's a difference between those, right? Like outraged carries moral weight. You're outraged by an injustice.
But furious is just pure, intense anger. You can be furious you dropped your coffee, but you wouldn't be outraged by it.
That makes sense. And incensed actually shares a root with incense, right? Meaning to be set on fire.
Yes. Extreme anger is deeply rooted in our biology. Think about the idioms. Blowing a fuse, flying off the handle, hitting the roof, going ballistic.
Or seeing red and blind rage. I've always wondered about those. Is there a biological reason we connect anger to losing our vision?
Actually, yes. When you experience extreme rage, your sympathetic nervous system takes over. Adrenaline floods your bloodstream.
Oh, wow.
Your blood pressure surges, which raises your body temperature, giving us hot under the collar. But that adrenaline also causes your pupils to dilate and your peripheral vision to narrow.
So it creates literal tunnel vision.
Exactly. And the rush of blood to the head can sometimes create a reddish tint to the vision. So seeing red is a biological diagnostic tool.
That is fascinating. And the idioms match that pressure perfectly. Blowing a fuse means an electrical system got too much power and snapped.
And flying off the handle dates back to pioneer days. It refers to an axe head coming loose mid-swing.
Right, it goes from a useful tool to a dangerous projectile. But in the adult world, at work or in a nice restaurant, you can't just act like a loose axe head.
No, you definitely cannot blow a fuse in a corporate boardroom.
You need a governor on the engine. Which brings us to diplomatic language. It's like gently tapping the brakes instead of slamming them and causing a crash.
Diplomacy is about softening the blow while preserving the relationship.
So instead of saying, this report is terrible and I'm furious, what do you say?
You use understatement. You say, I was hoping for something a bit more comprehensive. Or, I found it a little underwhelming.
Underwhelming is such a passive-aggressive word. It means the wave of the experience didn't even reach you.
Right. You might also say, you are displeased, not too thrilled or not too happy. It forces the listener to read between the lines.
But why is it that a boss saying, I am disappointed in you, feels infinitely worse than them saying, I am angry at you?
It's all about human expectations. Anger is a reaction to an event. You missed a deadline, the system outputs anger.
You can fix an action.
Exactly. But disappointment implies a breach of trust. They had a positive expectation of your potential, and you failed to meet it.
Oh, so anger taxes the event, but disappointment taxes the relationship itself.
Yes, which is why it carries a much heavier, lingering weight.
Okay, so we've mapped out the altitude of happiness, the physical trauma of sadness, the biology of anger, and diplomatic disappointment. But what happens when you cross a border?
Well, our sources show that emotions are not just words you can swap in a dictionary. They are complex cultural frameworks.
Right, there are untranslatable words, like the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi.
Yes, it translates roughly to finding a quiet beauty in imperfection and transience, like appreciating a cracked teacup because the crack shows its history.
We don't have a single English word for that, or the Danish word hygge, which we translate as coziness.
But that completely strips away its cultural weight about togetherness and safe environments against the dark winter.
And the Filipino word kilig, which describes the giddy thrill, the literal butterflies in your stomach during a romantic encounter.
If you just translate it as excitement, you completely erase the romantic nuance.
But the barriers go deeper than vocabulary. It's about how cultures display emotion. The academic paper contrasted the Japanese concept with the American model.
Yes, the Japanese concept of wa, which means social harmony.
Hmm?
Under wa, overt displays of extreme emotion that disrupt balance are discouraged.
So frustration or intense passion is conveyed through silence or pauses.
Right. Contrast that with American culture, which often equates authenticity with volume and directness.
So an American might say, I am outraged, while someone prioritizing wa might quietly say, this is somewhat regrettable.
But internally, their blood pressure might be spiking to the exact same biological level. The output just has different cultural speed limits.
But wait, in the modern world, can't we just plug this into an AI or Google Translate? Why do we need to learn this nuance?
Well, AI fails at emotion because algorithms prioritize grammar over emotional subtext.
Right, they map statistical probability, not lived bodily experience.
Exactly. Take the phrase, I'm feeling blue. A literal machine translation tells the listener, your physical body is the color blue. It destroys the melancholic weight.
It has no idea what a racing heart feels like. It doesn't possess a sympathetic nervous system.
And it cannot interpret a sarcastic, oh, I'm just thrilled, because sarcasm relies on cultural and vocal tone. Empathy requires a human lens.
It lacks the biological hardware to understand the software of emotion.
Exactly.
So let's bring all this together into a practical summary for you. We can do a quick side-by-side comparison so you can hear the difference.
Yes. Instead of saying, I am happy because I got the job, elevate the altitude and say, I am absolutely thrilled.
And instead of saying, I am sad that my team lost, borrow the language of physical trauma and say, I am absolutely gutted.
If you're annoyed, instead of saying the traffic makes me angry, use the mechanical metaphor and say, the traffic drives me crazy.
And in a professional environment, instead of throwing a tantrum, tap the brakes and say, I found the service a little underwhelming.
You're no longer painting with just two colors. You have the entire palette.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought from our sources. It's the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
Also known as linguistic relativity. It argues that the structure of a language actively influences how its speakers perceive the world.
Right. So if you didn't know the words kilig or hygge before today, does learning the exact word actually allow you to experience that feeling more deeply in the future?
Do the words build the feeling, or does the feeling build the words? It's a fascinating concept to ponder.
It really is.
If you enjoyed learning these emotional expressions, please subscribe to our channel.
Yes, and please hit the like button and click the bell icon to join our community.
Thank you for listening.
Take care and see you next time. Goodbye.